In the beginning, there was nothing but an infinite void. The world was merely a dark storm stretching without beginning or end, filled with silence and darkness, until the goddess, with her light, illuminated that chaos and shaped the first continent, giving rise to life. From this act were born 9 distinct races: the great Digonuts, the beautiful and wise elves, the proud Onafolk, the steadfast and resilient dwarves, the enigmatic Demonkin, the mysterious dark elves, the agile centaurs, the beastfolk marked by their strength, and finally the humans, to whom the young man who stars in this story belongs. The anime's narrative begins with Luz, a human, as he says goodbye to his family. The boy's thoughts were filled with the certainty that he needed to become an adventurer to create a better life for those he loved. He believed leaving home early would be a necessary sacrifice. His mother watched him silently. His father tried to hide his concern, and Luz thought to himself that he needed to be strong. "If I give up now, I'll never be able to change anything," he repeated to himself as he took his first steps away from home. As soon as he arrived in the city, however, he faced the harshness of prejudice. A beast man stood in his way, stared at him with disdain, and, without mercy, chased him from the place. The boy apologized, but that wasn't enough. Instead of understanding, he received only insults and was humiliated in front of everyone. Deep inside, Luz wondered why humans were always treated as inferior. Still, he swallowed his tears and moved on. Shortly thereafter, he entered the Adventurers Guild. There, he met the clerk, who greeted him with a professional look. The boy, in a firm voice, introduced himself, saying his name was Luz. The woman, curious, asked if it was his first time registering. He nodded and was immediately classified as rank F. When the attendant asked Luz what class he belonged to, he replied, "Unlimited Gacha." Her expression was confused. As she didn't understand what that meant, she asked him to explain further. So Luz, trying to demonstrate his power, summoned various objects before her. But everything went wrong. Objects appeared broken. Utensils didn't work. Even the fruit that appeared in his hands was rotten. The clerk observed in silence, concluding that those skills seemed useless. However, she handed him his adventurer's card and said that rank F would be the best way for him to gain experience without constantly exposing himself to ridicule. Luz, still determined, immediately asked for some work. She directed him to look in the next room, where the beginner mission boards were located. When he approached to read, the attendant noticed his difficulty and asked if he had any problems. The truth was that, in that world, the literacy rate among humans was very low, and many of them couldn't even read. She then took one of the papers and explained the missions: gathering firewood, transporting earth, mowing grass. Even though they were hard work, Luz accepted, as she had no better options. After a long day of completing simple tasks, Luz returned to the city exhausted. His hands were covered in scratches, his muscles ached, and his clothes covered in dirt. Upon receiving his pay, he realized it was too small. He thought to himself that the money would barely cover modest lodging, leaving nothing left for food. Even so, he decided he had to resist. "If I stop now, I'll never be able to provide a better future for my family," he reflected silently. As he walked through the streets with coins clutched in his hand, a beastman intercepted him. The man looked him up and down, noting he was just an inexperienced beginner. With a sneer, he said Luz had soiled his clothes and would have to pay for the laundry. Before the boy could defend himself, the man took all the money he had earned that day. The boy begged him not to do it, but his weak voice went unheard. The beastman merely laughed, saying he would use those coins to drink with his companions. Then, he left him lying on the ground, mercilessly. Just when Luz thought he couldn't feel any more alone, an unexpected presence appeared. An elf appeared before him and extended her hand. The boy, startled, recoiled slightly, but the young woman smiled calmly. She said she wouldn't harm him and asked him not to be afraid. Then, leaning down, she hugged him gently. People passing by reacted immediately, whispering and expressing disgust. Many found it disgusting to see an elf showing affection to a human. Luz, confused and unsure, wondered if it was all just a dream. However, the elf firmly replied that it was real. She revealed that she belonged to the Concord of Tribes, an organization created to unite representatives of the 9 races formed by the goddess. Gradually, her companions introduced themselves. There was Geru, the imposing wolf, Sasha, the elf who had helped him. Drago, the powerful Dragonudo. Diblo, the Oni warrior. Nano, the small but resilient dwarf. Sion, the enigmatic dark elf. And Santos, the centaur with a steady gaze. Sasha explained that the group needed a human to complete their formation. The purpose was clear. They wanted to fight racial discrimination and build a more just world where all races could live in harmony. Extending her hand again, the elf asked Luz to join them. The boy hesitated for a moment, but decided to accept. Perhaps this is the opportunity I've been waiting for to prove myself, he thought. In the first dungeon they entered together. Sasha took the lead. She attacked the approaching beast, opening the way for Luz to join in the fight. In the end, the creature was defeated, but the elf warned the boy. She sternly told him not to stray, as they were in the abyss, the most dangerous dungeon in the world. She reminded him that any carelessness there could result in immediate death. It wasn't long before the other members of the group gathered. Some noticed Sasha's constant concern for Luz, but the elf asked them to stop teasing. She stated that she didn't want the team's reputation tarnished by the loss of a companion. The lizardman then commented in a more light-hearted tone that Luz should remain calm, reminding her that they were only at the beginning of their journey. He added that he really liked the tea the boy made and encouraged everyone to continue, as the road ahead would still be long and arduous. As they advanced deeper into the abyss, the atmosphere grew even more tense. Luz, despite being exhausted, tried to keep up with the group. Suddenly, the beastman approached him, his gaze filled with contempt. In a firm, cold voice, he declared that he no longer needed the boy's presence in the group. Luz, confused, couldn't understand what was happening. He looked at each member in turn, trying to find some reason, some justification for their behavior. All his companions around him wore hard, impassive expressions, and Luz felt a chill run down his spine. The beastman declared that Luz was nothing more than useless to everyone there. Gradually, each member began criticizing him with cutting words. The boy went into shock. He tried to recall any mistakes he had made, but there was nothing. He couldn't understand why he was being betrayed by the very people who seemed to trust him. The elf, Sasha, who had been showing affection and care until then, revealed that it had all been a sham. She explained that they had merely tricked him into observing his performance within the abyss, but that his abilities were merely a sick joke. Everyone agreed that Luz couldn't be a maestro with the power he possessed. Some even commented that the guild leadership should have made the decision to remove him sooner. One of them said it would be best to eliminate Luz immediately, so that the other adventurers wouldn't witness the scene. The boy felt the reality hit him when one of them wounded his face. He realized it was no joke and tried desperately to flee. However, Sasha fired an arrow, preventing his escape, and Luz fell to the ground, stunned. Everyone present revealed that they were paid to hunt humans, and that they enjoyed hearing their victims' screams of suffering. Immediately afterward, the beast man kicked Luz, ordering him to fight back. He said he couldn't stand weak people and wanted to see him suffer even more. The group leader finally ordered them to stop and finish what they had started. They had already agreed that the official version would be that Luz had died during a surprise monster attack. The beastman understood the order, but upon observing the boy's determination, he realized he still wanted to live. He smiled mischievously, thanking Luz for the brief entertainment, watching the young man's every effort and movement in his mind. Meanwhile, Luz couldn't comprehend the situation. Why was he being treated this way? How could someone who had trusted him and seemed so friendly now want to destroy him? Every thought echoed with pain, confusion, and anger. Deep down, he knew only one thing. He had to survive at any cost. As the magic circle appeared around him, one of the group members ordered Luz to be finished quickly. He prepared to receive the final blow, but to everyone's surprise, he disappeared. Luz had activated a teleportation trap, narrowly saving himself. Even elsewhere, there was no time for rest. He was wounded, in pain, and if any monster emerged, it would be eliminated immediately. He began to cry, feeling the injustice and betrayal. From the beginning, he had been deceived, treated like trash, and used as a disposable object. But deep within his mind, a flame of revenge began to grow. He would not die in this place without a fight. He would not allow those who betrayed him to go unpunished. But before he could fully prepare, a gigantic monster appeared behind him. Its strength was unimaginable, reaching level 1000. Only in folk tales had people heard of such powerful creatures. Luz was in shock, realizing he had been taken to the deepest part of the abyss. The monster advanced slowly but inevitably, ready to finish him off. In his mind, there was only one thought: he couldn't die. His entire gift, his class, was all he had to survive. If he failed, he would never see his family again. If he failed, he would have no chance to exact revenge on those who deceived him and treated him like trash. Every muscle in his body tensed, every ounce of strength channeled into resisting and facing this seemingly insurmountable threat. Luz knew he couldn't give up, couldn't fail. His life, his future, and his revenge depended solely on his determination and his power. Even if he was still underestimated by everyone around him, Luz began to chant a soft incantation, sensing something strange in the air. Soon, distant voices seemed to whisper around her, and then, before her eyes, a girl appeared. With a single blow, she eliminated all the beasts surrounding them and took the opportunity to cleanse Luz of the dirt and wounds covering her body. Then she turned to him, healing all his wounds efficiently and gently. She apologized for what had happened. She couldn't bear to see Luz's face marred by deep, painful wounds, so she took the initiative to treat him immediately, expecting nothing in return. When Luz realized his wounds had completely disappeared, he felt relief and gratitude well up in his chest. The girl, with a respectful look, called him master. She asked, in a timid but firm voice, if she could have the honor of hearing his name. He answered clearly, Luz. Hearing that, the girl blushed, keeping his name deep in her heart. According to her code of honor as a servant, she had an absolute duty to her master. She promised to live in his service, pledging her loyalty until her last breath. She introduced herself as May, a level 999 maiden, a super ultra rare card that had emerged from Luz's Unlimited Gacha. With great determination, May vowed to remain bound to him even after death, so they could live together for the rest of their lives. Luz, surprised, said that was impossible. Her skill, the Unlimited Gacha, seemed useless. There was no explanation for someone as extraordinary as May to emerge from something considered so weak. Even so, May asked Luz to call her by name. He hesitated, still embarrassed, but eventually complied. The girl beamed with happiness. Then she made another request. She wanted permission to use Luz's appraisal ability to thoroughly examine her Unlimited Gacha. She wanted absolute certainty of its potential. Analyzing the boy's power, May realized that Luz was far more incredible than he appeared. All of his abilities were hidden under layers of secrecy, making it impossible for anyone outside his level to discern the details. She explained that Luz's gacha was by no means useless. His gift could be rolled an infinite number of times, and the cards produced varied in rarity depending on the surrounding mana density. The highest rarities were Extra, Super Ultra Rare, and SSS Rare. Below that were the most common cards: SS Rare, S Rare, Rare, Normal, and Error. May explained that mana flowed throughout the world, but its density was low on the surface, making super ultra rare cards like hers virtually impossible to spawn there. However, deep within the dungeons, where mana was denser, Luz had a much better chance of obtaining powerful cards. She praised the boy's courage, noting that he had traveled alone to the bottom of the dungeon to explore the full potential of Unlimited Gacha and place his card upon it. Encountering any monster could have been fatal, given his current abilities, but May assured him there was no need to fear. She would be by his side the entire time. Luz, however, firmly replied that she was mistaken. He could never face the abyss alone. He remembered how he had been betrayed by those who called his gift horrible, struck and shot with arrows by people who had once seemed like friends. All he wanted was to provide for his family, and the pain of betrayal had been unbearable. Those who had been kind suddenly became cruel killers. Luz, with rage and determination, decided that all those who had deceived and hurt him must pay. May grabbed the boy's arm. She said that, as a maid, she could never fully understand the depth of the suffering he had endured. But with the power she now possessed, she could easily eliminate all the traitors if Luz gave the order. Luz calmly asked her to wait a moment. He had trusted those people too much, nearly dying after being beaten and sent to that place. Even though he was only a weak human, He wanted revenge to be taken into his own hands, making everyone suffer as he had. May promised that if that was the boy's wish, she would help him achieve his personal revenge. She believed in his potential and knew that Luz, with his unlimited gacha, could indeed defeat them all with extreme ease. With that, Luz once again rolled the infinite gacha into the abyss, paving the way to build his own kingdom, and pave the way for his revenge. And so ends the first episode. If you liked it, comment revenge, and stay tuned for the next episode, which will be released next Saturday. We are taken 3 years later, when the boy managed to raise an entire castle inside the dungeon. Everyone was shocked and very happy, as they received Luz's gratitude. The girls liked him deeply and praised him every day. Some were so obsessed with Luz that they even imagined smelling his feet. His servant wished to silence all of them for being too noisy. Luz, in turn, was calm. He knew they were simply in love, and it was no big deal. He only wished that the servant remained calm. Upon leaving the dungeon, everyone thanked Luz a lot, as he was considered almost a national hero. He managed much of the city, and the population had grown a lot in the past 3 years, indicating that perhaps it was necessary to revise the whole system. Luz wanted to know what the other members of the quartet were doing. The girl replied that each was on their own missions. Ayuki was exploring the upper perimeter of the abyss and drawing maps. The surrounding forests were infested with monsters, but that was not a problem for a genius tamer like Ayuki. Luz wanted to know if Ellie was progressing. The girl explained that she worked hard developing new magics, following her great plan. Lastly, Luz asked about Nazuna, and the girl said she patrolled the castle gardens. As always, she was an expert in hand-to-hand combat, but beyond that distracted easily. The scene cut to Luz inside his castle. At the door was Jack. The girl was irritated, as the man was always rude when speaking to Luz. The boy, however, did not mind. Seeing Jack as an older brother figure, Luz decided to train a bit to improve his strikes. While attacking, he landed a direct punch on Jack's stomach. The man got excited by the boy's strength, but knew these hits would be ineffective, as he was called Iron Blood Barricade. Luz's punch could have killed anyone else. Both began exchanging blows with skill and precision. Meanwhile, Nazuna walked through the castle corridors. All the maids greeted her and asked her to clean a certain place. Upon knocking on the door, she noticed May was there. Nazuna wanted to know why she was in Master Luz's room. May replied she was patrolling. Nazuna questioned why she was there if Luz should be training with Jack. May became embarrassed and explained she was cleaning the boys' room. It was against the maid's code to be idle, even in the master's absence, so she was organizing the quarters. Nazuna did not mind and entered to patrol. Upon entering, she noticed the bed had been recently used. May explained that this was her way of tidying things. Nazuna was enchanted and wanted to know how she did it. May replied it was a trade secret and could not reveal it. Nazuna was impressed by May's skill. The girl sighed with relief as Nazuna noticed nothing. Nazuna had gone to the place to deliver something the maids had requested. All wanted to clean Luz's room, but the girl asked to leave everything under her responsibility. She explained it was her role as head maid and that she would personally care for the fairy maids and any problems arising. May gave some money so she could spend it. The girl left smiling, buying various sweets along the way. On the route, she encountered Ayuki and asked if she should not be exploring the forests around the abyss. Trying to start a conversation, Ayuki only responded with meows, leaving Nazuna confused. Nazuna remembered she had been summoned later, though still older than Ayuki. Soon after, Ayuki showed the paper with no monsters found. She had completed part of the map requested by May and returned only to deliver the paperwork. Then, she departed, still on patrol and needing to continue her work. Upon reaching another part of the castle, Nazuna called Doriaki. Noticing everything was clean and organized, she sat on Luz's throne, ran her hands over the backrest, and sighed, missing the boy, as he had not yet appeared in the castle. While moving, she broke a part of the throne due to her strength. She panicked, not knowing what to do, and quickly put the piece back in place before running out. The scene returned to Luz and Jack, who continued fighting. After a long time of combat, Jack suggested they stop and take a bath to relax. Luz thought it an excellent idea. In the hot springs, Jack was very happy with the master. admiring that he had learned to use his body as a weapon. Luz thanked him, aware that none of this would be possible without Jack's help. Even so, Jack commented that some points in the abyss could still resist the boy, indicating even less resistance on the surface. Luz reflected on the surface world, considering it full of unknowns, since being kicked and abandoned. He began harboring deep hatred. He vowed never to lower his guard, not knowing what could happen, and promised to carry his revenge to the end of his life. The scene shifted to May, who summoned some of her maids. She wanted to know if they had written the letter. All denied. May began reading, and the girls went into shock. They apologized, explaining they did not mean to say it wrongly. They knew May was always busy and only wanted to ease her work. May got angry, as they had asked Nazuna to deliver the letter instead of speaking directly to her. One girl was even more frightened, knowing she should not have requested such a favor. May decided not to accept the demands and, from then on, assigned all to clean the throne room by hand. Without any tools, they would have to execute everything manually. May did not worry, comparing the task to the effort needed to reach level 500. Soon, she would go to the surface on a mission for Master Luz, expecting everyone to work diligently in her absence. The scene cut again to Nazuna, who was observing several armors lined up in the corridor. Ellie approached and asked if she was again searching for sweets. Nazuna replied no, she was only analyzing the armors. Ellie did not understand and imagined that her colleague was conducting some inspection or participating in a construction. Ellie explained that everything had gone so well in her project that she had enough time to return to the castle. People in nearby shops watched the discussion between the two and found it completely baseless. Ellie bragged about having been able to take tea with Master Luz to inform him about her plan's progress. She also said that next time, she would reserve a private room to dine with him, implying that later she herself would be the meal. Nazuna reacted immediately, considering that unfair. She also wanted to take tea with Master Luz and thought it wrong that only Ellie had this chance. Nazuna asked Ellie to help her schedule a meeting to have coffee with Luz. She promised that if Ellie needed assistance in hand-to-hand combat, she could help and leave immediately afterward. Then, without waiting for an answer, Nazuna said goodbye and left quickly through the castle corridors. Ellie watched her colleague leave, reflecting on how Nazuna could be so strong and at the same time so naive. She smiled to herself and returned to work. The scene cut to the maids. One could not understand why they were wrong in complaining about the head maid's management style, which they considered unfair. All agreed with the girl but knew little could be done, since May was untouchable. They wished to clean Luz's room, but did not understand why May did not allow them to care for the space, even considering that the agent was large and there were enough tasks. They remembered that the head maid had been Luz's first summoning. Moreover, they heard that it took 3 months for Ayuki to be summoned as the second. This meant that they had been alone until then. All felt pity for Luz, having remained locked alone in the dungeon with May for so long. Not to mention that, at that time, Master Luz was even shorter than the level of the maids. They did not even want to imagine what they could have done during that period. Suddenly, May appeared in the place, passing through the corridor and hearing some words that seemed directed at her. The girls said they were all devoted to May, but she did not believe them and began threatening them. Soon, they responded that they only felt a little jealous since May had been Luz's first summoning. The girl explained that during the 3 months they spent together, Luz spent the entire day reading all kinds of books on martial arts. There was no time for any of those vulgar things the girls were imagining. May said she stopped in the place because she felt she might have been too harsh with them and some orders might not have been reasonable. However, she realized she was wrong. They did not tire, and so May decided to assign them also to clean the throne room. Throughout the night, they worked tirelessly cleaning. However, they ended up knocking down the piece that Nazuna had broken, and all went into shock. The next day, they managed to meet with Luz, but became jealous noticing that he treated Aoyuki as if she were truly a cat, which they considered unfair to the others. Suddenly, a hellhound appeared in front, and the boy trembled with fear due to the trauma of having been abandoned. The monster, however, was frightened by the girl's determination, and Luz appeared to calm them, asking them to leave the animal alone. They asked why they had been summoned. Luz explained he had received a message from May, who had set the bait, and that finally it was time to act. It was the moment to carry out his revenge. After 3 years of preparation, the scene shifted to the Beast Men Federation in the Wolf City, Accra. The wolf had become the great leader and was respected by all. And so ends another episode. If you enjoyed it, write revenge, leave your like, and subscribe. See you next Friday. Goodbye and gone. Lord Garou is highly referenced by the people of the city. Upon encountering a human boy rummaging through the trash, he treats him as if he were nothing, kicks the child, and spits in his face. He tells him to get out of the way and calls him a worm. Then, he enters a bar to drink with his companions. Everyone treats him as if he were a god there, due to always helping people, beast of the slum. From orphan in the slums to favorite to become the next leader of the werewolves. People want to be like him, but Garou says it is not easy. One must use the instincts of a beast man to become stronger. He needs to separate the good jobs from the bad, and that is how he became what he is today. The men ask questions to learn about the work he did 3 years ago, but the man cannot speak of it. It is a secret kept only by him. Garou remembers that job as something very good to do. All the reputation and money from killing a human brat suspected of being a master were things that made everyone in that job rich. They never found him after he was teleported, but he knows it is impossible that he survived those injuries in a place like that. Yet, he still does not understand what these masters are that the nations are so desperately searching for. Deep down, he wonders if it is better to investigate, but knows it is very dangerous. It is better to let sleeping dogs lie. Soon after, he orders more drinks, but one of the protagonist's companions appears at the location. The scene cuts to all of them inside a dungeon. However, we are shown a bit more of what happened when she arrived at the bar. May arrived, introducing herself and asking if he was Sir Garou, formerly of the tribal Concord. The man's subordinates ask May not to speak that way to their master, but he tells everyone to be quiet and asks what brought May to the place. She explains she is May, a servant who swore absolute loyalty to Lord Luz. She has been searching for her master's whereabouts for a long time. In the man's mind, he wonders if May knows something they do not. May explains that the boy is of noble blood. The beast man starts laughing. There is no way a boy like Luz could be noble. May cannot say more than that, so she prefers to remain quiet. The man knows that the superiors should have investigated Luz thoroughly. He also recalls that Luz never mentioned being noble. But if she is telling the truth, it could be a good livelihood. Besides, the girl exudes money. Garou does not believe that Luz is a noble. May explains that she searched everywhere for Luz. Only recently did she discover that he joined a group of adventurers and had already passed through the abyss. May begins to cry and asks to be taken to the last place he was seen. The man realizes it is a trap, even though she shows plenty of gold. Yet, he thinks she is just a human. The man decides to take her, not for the money, but for the death of his friend Luz. He will bring his best men to the location to search for the boy, returning to the scene inside the cave. The man intends to take May to the back of the cave to use the girl's body and then eliminate her. Finally, they reach the place where Luz was last seen. The man explains that the boy was attacked by a monster unexpectedly. Wounded, he fell into a teleportation trap, and that is how it all happened. May kneels to create a scene. The beast understands the girl, but it was so sudden that nothing could be done. Soon after, they block the exits so she cannot leave. In his mind, he has always known that humans are fragile creatures, easy to deceive. May begins speaking that he was betrayed by scoundrels and tortured in a place as damp and filthy as this. Had she been by the boy's side from the start, he would not have been hit by an arrow, kicked, or left covered in blood. This shame is too much to bear. The beast understands and activates his claws. Stepping back, in his mind, he wonders how this girl knows all this. Only members of the tribal Concord and the superiors of several nations know what happened. The beast begins shouting and asks how she knows all this. She explains that the only person she swore loyalty to was Luz and only to him. She decides she will eliminate all of them in this place. The beast starts going into shock, sensing only the presence of the girl in that location. The girl's eyes are cold, capable of killing others, wondering only if she will eliminate him. Suddenly, Luz appears at the location, asking May to stop. Since Garou is his prey, everyone is in shock. wondering how a child like Luz reached the back of the cave alone. They think he may have company and ask their master to be careful. It could be a huge trap. He goes into shock and cannot understand how Luz survived everything in this cave. Luz is excited and has returned for revenge after 3 years. Garu's companions ask for an explanation to understand what is happening. The man starts laughing, unable to understand how a level 15 wants to avenge someone as strong as him. He is above level 150. There is no way a child like Luz could defeat him. Yet, Garu does not care. He will seize the boy's body and become the greatest beast man ever seen. Luz explains that he survived thanks to May, who healed him and became his servant. He knows they all have many questions to ask. The beast man does not care what they want to know. All his companions are above level 130. No 2 humans could do anything. For someone who survived by pure luck, there is no way to defeat them. So, he decides he will show how strong they are. As he moves toward the boy, 2 of them have their heads cut off in seconds. She does not want them insulting her master Luz in this way. The boy thanks her but only asks her to block the exit so no one can escape. She promises that no soul will leave this place. Everyone is in shock at the speed with which his companions were eliminated. Garu says it was just a surprise strike and there is nothing to worry about. Luz realizes that he has changed nothing. He still treats humans as an inferior race. They ask the man if they can be weak people, but he only tells Luz to shut up. Humans have always been and will always be weak. They are treated as low-level trash. He deleted their eyes at his level. Luz notices that each race has an exclusive level cap. This is the source of much discrimination and disdain for humans. The man responds that they are stronger than them and nothing can be done. Luz asks why 2 heads are on the ground. The man thinks it is just a lucky strike. He must have used some magical item or something to eliminate his companions. Moving toward the boy, Luz defeats them all with only his staff. Approaching, he asks if that is all they have to offer. Still, he continues saying that he is merely a human and cannot defeat him. Standing up, he grabs a magical stone to strengthen himself. Immediately afterward, he summons a level 500 monster to defeat Luz. The boy thinks it is all a waste of time. Level 500 monsters are extremely weak creatures. Garu thinks he must be insane, demanding that he beg for his life like he did 3 years ago. Luz decides he will not take a single step to defeat the monster or any of the companions. Garu grows even more irritated, and the boy can only be an idiot. Not a single bone will remain when this is all over. Then, the monster launches an attack at Luz. The man is delighted, thinking he will be eliminated. However, Luz does not move a muscle and manages to stop the strike with extreme ease. Luz asks if he is not ashamed of launching an attack only to raise dust and dirty his clothes. The beast goes into shock for not even tickling the boy. All the wolves are in shock that Luz managed to block such a strike. Luz decides it is now his turn to attack. Unable to understand how one could call a mutt like this dangerous, he decides to show a real one. Upon summoning the monster, all the leans go into shock. Luz orders to place this mutt on the ground. Doing so, he manages to freeze the monster and eliminate it with extreme ease. Garu goes into shock, unable to understand how magic like this destroyed his level 500 Fenrir in an instant. Luz decides to reveal his current level, 999. They all go into shock upon discovering the boy's terrifying strength. The man cannot comprehend how he could do this. The maximum strength humans can reach is level 100. Furthermore, he has not aged at all. Luz explains that he stopped aging with the youth bracelet. He has never forgotten the despair, sadness, and anger of the day they tried to eliminate him. In the beast's mind, he wonders if this person is truly Luz. He knows there is nothing he can do except accept the death that is his fate. The beast begins apologizing. Everything he did was on his country's orders and has nothing to do with Luz. Yet he wishes Luz would remember that, despite that incident, they still shared good moments. All his colleagues call him a coward. Luz has a question for the man. He wants to know everything he knows about the masters. The beast man says that the superiors only said to find them. Luz wants to know why they wanted to eliminate him after discovering he was not like them. The man responds that he knows nothing. The wolves start raising their hands, thinking they know something. but Mei splits them in half as if they were nothing. Geru goes into shock and despair. Luz has another question: whether they could win if they waged war against the superior nations. Luz wants him to be honest. The beast begins trembling with fear, knowing Luz is a strong person and would have a temporary advantage in the fight. No matter how high the boy's level is, he is still just a human. They have at their disposal all the weapons, armor, and items they have accumulated over years. Luz understands and has always known there is a limit he can handle alone. He has more questions to ask him, so he wants them to follow him. Luz then decides to take him to his chamber. Upon bringing the beast, he shows all his war companions for him to see. Noticing the levels of the monsters and humans, he urinates even more from fear. Luz decides, as a reward, to keep him in perpetual despair, inflicting suffering worse than death. The beast can only think that they gave life to the monster, and there is nothing he can do. The beast begins to cry and asks if Luz plans to become a god. This never occurred to the boy, but he is certain it is not a bad idea. He can leave the world as he wishes, happy or sad. He must grant happiness or torture. It is time to mobilize and go to the surface, and thus ends the 3rd episode. If you want to see how the next revenges will unfold, subscribe to the channel and leave your like to help. See you next Friday and goodbye. The scene changes to the boy going to his father's and mother's village, but he finds it completely destroyed and falls into tears. When he sees his sister's teddy bear, he goes into shock. It is explained to us that during the 2.5 years he was trapped in the abyss, his village was wiped out by unknown groups. 6 months later, the only good thing is that he found the bodies of his brother or sister. The fact that they might still be alive is the only remnant of hope left. One of his men asks if he's done, and the boy replies yes. The man doesn't feel like setting up a tent on the first day, so they must hurry after the objective. One of the girls gets stressed, not understanding why he dares to talk that way to the Lord who is in mourning. But the boy is calm, unable to tell if they like each other or not. The man explains that being polite feels too formal. There's no sense of closeness in that. Besides, he asks if she'd rather not sleep in nature or sleep somewhere with a bed. But she doesn't care. What matters is staying near her master Luz at all times. The man will also accompany his master to the peaks of mountains covered with ice and through lakes of molten magma. He made an oath of loyalty to Luz. That is the chivalry of an Auric knight. Even so, he doesn't want her to sleep under the stars. He doesn't think that's very comfortable. Luz agrees and first needs to gather some information. They already know their forces are enough to face the entire world. But it's a bit premature to wage total war at this point. The man has a saying, "Know your enemies and know yourself, and one will fight 100 battles without chaos." Luz checked the power of several nations during the time he was increasing his own. The attack on his village has something to do with the fact that he is a potential master. What happened with the fact of being a master, and them having come so far is something he can't understand. He becomes stressed and begins to emit an incredible aura. And if the truth of the world is rooted in evil, he will engulf the world in the fire of hell. The man only asks the boy to keep that bloodlust under control while in the city. Luz apologizes and promises he will control himself more next time. Then, he activates his mask so he can disguise himself and enter the city without being recognized by the people. As they fly away, the girl asks what they will do in the city of Dagas. The man asks her not to keep calling him Luz, because that was his old name and people might recognize him. Luz explains that the first thing he needs to do is raise his ranking as a dark adventurer. The higher the rank he has, the more interesting the information they will have access to. That's why Luz needs to raise his rank for now. After a long time flying, they finally reach the city of Dagas. The man thinks it's better they stop flying so they won't stand out too much. Looking ahead, they notice a group of bandits attacking a father and a child to steal all their belongings. Looking back, they see a group of people staring at them. They tell them to leave immediately, otherwise they'll be killed. With great ease, Luz manages to capture all of them as if they were nothing. To them, those guys weren't even worth the effort. They were so weak. The boy is fascinated by the strength of the group, and the father decides to give them a ride to Dagas. Luz thanks him for the ride, but the man asks him not to thank him, since they were the ones who saved his and his son's lives. The boy is fascinated, as he had never seen humans strong enough to defeat before. The man has a question. Since they are heading to the city of Dogas, they must be going after the dungeon. He would like to know if they are famous adventurers. Luz replies that they're not. They haven't even registered yet, so they're just beginner adventurers. Both are shocked, since they're only beginners. Luz explains that upon first registration at the guild, Dogas, and he started to climb the ranks from there. Luz says they'll register at the Dogas guild and begin rising in rank from there. The man explains that they're in the right place. Dogas is the southernmost city of the Dwarven Kingdom. It borders the human kingdom to the east and the elven kingdom to the south. They've had their share of territorial disputes, but due to the quality of its dungeon, it attracts many adventurers. It became quite a bustling city just by being in the middle of nowhere. Of all races, it's the most popular among humans. That's why the man runs an inn for them. Arriving in front of the city, he asks if they really want to stay in that place. Luz replies yes and explains that it's better to be more discreet. The man introduces himself as Colonel and wants them to stay at his inn. The boy asks his father why they are being so discreet, since they are beginners. The man replies that they must have their reasons. After all, it's a city of adventurers. Blacksmithing is also the specialty of the Dwarven Kingdom. Entering the guild, Luz notices that the place seems to have many aspiring human adventurers. Seeing people move away, he notices that even here humans are mistreated when other races see them. Upon receiving his rank, Luz ends up getting an F rank, and one of his subordinates gets stressed because of how low the boy's rank is. The girl is upset and demands they place him in rank S. But the woman rudely explains that everyone starts at rank F. Luz apologizes and wants her to proceed with the registration. Outside, the girl cries heavily, unable to believe she made her lord apologize like that. The scene cuts to Luz entering her friend's hotel. Luz explains that he has a few selfish requests. The first is that they would like to rent the upper floor for an entire month. During their stay, no one is allowed to go up to the top floor, not even staff members. Then he gives a pile of gold for that time. The man cannot accept so much money from those who saved his life. Luz explains that this is a very selfish request, so he would like them to accept it. The man is very happy with the amount of gold given to him. Entering the room, the girl explains that even though he is the strongest person in the world, there's still a chance something could go wrong if he's so careless. Luz asks if she intends to deny his revenge. Frightened, she replies that's not it. The place begins to shake, and she starts begging for her life. The man asks Luz to calm down a bit. He explains to the girl that Luz wants to relive that moment without caring about the danger. The boy is eager to take revenge without depending on anyone else. Kneeling near the girl, he apologizes, knowing she's been worried about him all this time. Even so, he becomes emotional. She apologizes and wishes to renew her vow of trust. Kissing the boy's feet, Luz doesn't like that much, but they beg for it to be that way. Walking through the city, everyone keeps talking about them, which makes them a bit uneasy. Entering the line, they notice there are few elves in the place. Luz explains that the reason there are so few elves is because the Dwarven Kingdom and the Elven Kingdom are fighting over possession of that dungeon. Suddenly, a group of men appears cutting in line. Luz notices that the first is an attendant carrying all their belongings. The second is reasonably strong but full of openings, but the one in front, by how they move despite carrying those big objects, he is quite difficult to deal with. Suddenly, Luz appears and asks them not to keep cutting in front of people. The man becomes irritated and asks if he knows who he's talking to. Luz replies that no, there's no way to know the face of someone who's hiding it. He would like him to avoid doing anything that could tarnish his reputation at this moment. Just as he's about to strike a blow against Luz's group, one of them asks him not to do it and stops him. The man tells him to calm down. It's not wise to make a scene in this place. He asks if he really wants to use that item here. Right after, he gives up and says this isn't over yet, and that he'll come back for him. After that, everyone is very happy with Luz for managing to restore order to the place. The boy realizes he has ended up becoming quite a celebrity among the adventurers. The group of adventurers in front thanks him a lot for managing to drive them away. They were scared and wouldn't have been able to do anything about it. The boy asks if they are new to this cave. Luz replies that yes, they are. The boy explains that this dungeon is larger than average, so people usually camp inside it overnight. He assumed as much because they weren't carrying materials or any kind of equipment. Luz thanks him for the advice, but the boy explains that he's sorry. He has no further advice to give after Luz's help. The girl asks if they should bring something to lie on. Luz decides he'll figure that out later. Soon it's the boy's turn, and they say goodbye to enter the dungeon. The scene cuts to Luz and her friends inside the dungeon. He explains that he's never been in a dungeon other than the Abyss before. It's strange how they appear all over the world in different sizes and types. The man remembers that the boy had said this dungeon was huge. Luz explains that to uncover the secrets of dungeons, they need to analyze their cores. But not even Ellie can do something like that. It's explained that the deeper one goes, the higher the mana concentration becomes. With that mana, many things are created, from monsters to traps and a great variety of environments. Dungeons are a world completely different from the surface. The girl says she can't even sense anyone within hundreds of meters of them. Soon after, Luz activates his power and flies around the place. Both praise the boy, saying that ability is very useful since it gives them a wide view of the area. Below, an elf stands before several orcs and defeats them all with extreme ease and fury beyond this world. He's fighting angrily, wondering who they think he is to be pushed to the end of the line like that. He's an elf's blood mixed with the blood of a hero, a master's blood running through his veins. Kaido. The other elf asks him to calm down. They're here to face the orcs on the 3rd floor. The boy tells him to shut up. The insects that made him angry will pay. Once he inherits the blood of a master, he'll wipe out their entire race. Even though the elf is level 1500, he still thinks he's weak, but his companion explains that he's already surpassed the power of a normal elf. Even so, the boy remains stressed and insists he must become a legendary hero. His maximum level can't be 1500, he needs to rise a bit more. The man explains that he was banished from his homeland for his research and understands the boy's frustration. Then he asks him to help him level up, and the man says he'll do it with all the pleasure in the world. Once he levels up, the boy won't need the elf beside him anymore. The scene shifts back to Luz and his group. They've managed to defeat a large group of orcs and only need to take the core as proof of their victory. Luz decides to return to the city soon, since everything is filthy, and his companions agree. Flying back, they think it's best to go discreetly to avoid raising suspicion. Looking down, they notice the same group that was with them. Working as a team, they manage to defeat enemies easily. Suddenly, Luz appears, defeats a snake, and tells them to be careful not to focus only on one enemy. Suddenly, a pack of wolves shows up. Luz tells them not to move, they're not there to attack, and before they know it, a giant grasshopper appears behind the girl. Everyone was completely shocked to see that creature before them, a monster said to have been extinct for more than 10 years. Astonishment took over the group, and one of the adventurers, overcome by despair, asked if there was any spell capable of getting them out of there alive. Luz remained calm and, unexpectedly, asked if he could keep the monster for himself. The boy beside him, confused, wanted to understand what he meant. It seemed insane to think of capturing such a thing when the most sensible option was to run away as fast as possible. They needed to warn the guild and alert the other adventurers. But Luz didn't seem to care. He said coldly that trying to escape would be useless, and without wasting a second, he charged toward the creature. The clash began fiercely, with quick exchanges of blows. Even so, Luz stepped back for a moment and admitted he couldn't wound the enemy. The creature's hide was too tough, like an impenetrable shell. Still, he didn't give up. Gathering his energy, he launched a powerful attack, but the monster blocked it with terrifying ease. The boy, desperate, begged Luz to use a support spell, but the girl in the group interrupted him, incredulous, asking if he had gone mad. According to her, there was no way to enhance someone who already wielded such unnatural power. The boy understood her reasoning, but couldn't just stand there doing nothing. Before he could act, the older man in the group stepped forward, telling them not to worry. He raised his shield firmly and declared that he would show them how to fight properly with sword and shield. Advancing against the creature, he managed, with a precise strike, to damage the beast's carapace, leaving everyone astonished. With a confident look, He explained that a well-used defense could be as deadly as the fiercest attack. Then, he struck again, cutting off one of the monster's legs, opening a path for the next assault. Determined to finish what he had started, Luz raised his hand and conjured several fiery arrows that hit the creature head-on, causing massive destruction and leaving everyone speechless. Despite its wounds, the creature still resisted. With a deafening roar, it began to retreat slowly until, in a sudden movement, it fled into the forest. Luz had no intention of letting it escape. Focusing his power, he invoked what he called the Revelation Strike. Within seconds, a wall of fire rose around the monster, forming a blazing prison that prevented its escape. The flames danced around the beast, reflecting in Luz's determined eyes. Then, when it seemed nothing else could surprise them, the monster spread huge wings and started to fly, trying to flee through the skies. Luz followed the movement with his gaze and ordered Nimuru to go after the creature before it vanished completely. Without hesitation, the girl leaped toward the enemy, her sword glowing with icy power. In a single, precise motion, she split the beast's body in half, ending the fight in a breathtaking display. The silence that followed was absolute. No one could believe what they had just witnessed. 3 people, alone, had defeated a creature thought to be invincible. The shock turned into admiration, and for a moment, they just stared at one another in silence, trying to comprehend what it all meant. After making sure the creature was truly dead, the group collected the artifact that had been inside it. The boy, still processing what had happened, asked if they were renowned adventurers. He wanted to know if they belonged to the ranks of A or B, since he believed only someone of that level could have done what he had seen. Luz replied calmly that he was merely rank F. The group froze again, unable to believe that beginners could have faced and defeated something so powerful. The girl, recovering from her shock, used her water magic so everyone could wash their hands and clean the blood from battle. Luz thanked her gesture with a faint smile and said they should leave as soon as possible. The boy insisted that they stay until nightfall, since traveling after dark was extremely dangerous. He also mentioned that his sister wished to speak with Luz about magic. They sat around the improvised campfire while the girl watched Luz with curiosity and admiration. She commented on how amazing it was to see him use so many different spells with such ease. Luz smiled modestly and replied that it was nothing special, but she praised him again, her eyes gleaming sincerely. Her brother, intrigued, asked if what Luz did was really that extraordinary. The girl answered without hesitation, it was something from another world. Then she began explaining the classes of magic. The combat class focused on direct spells such as Flaming Arrow or Glacial Blade. The tactical class, responsible for support and control magic, like the Wall of Fire they had seen earlier. And finally, the strategic class, reserved for spells that shaped the very world: meteors, tsunamis, earthquakes, enchantments that required the combined strength of several mages. She said that only magical races, such as elves, dark elves, and draconoids, could manipulate such immense power with ease. A human, in theory, could never do what Luz had done, and yet, he had done it without even uttering a single incantation. That revelation left everyone speechless. To them, Luz was more than an adventurer, he was a living legend. The young woman blushed as she realized how passionately she had spoken, and her brother laughed, saying she sounded like a devotee praising her own master. Luz averted his gaze, uncomfortable with so much admiration. Though his eyes carried a silent pride, it was clear that, at that moment, he had earned everyone's respect and curiosity. As they walked along the mist-covered road, a man suddenly appeared, drawing the group's attention. "Are you part of the clan of the Black Jester?" he asked curiously. Luz raised an eyebrow, puzzled. "What do you mean, Jester?" The stranger smiled cautiously. "That's what everyone calls you." Instinctively, Nimuru drew her weapon and stepped forward to protect her master. "What do you want with him?" she asked in a threatening tone. The man raised his hands, trying to calm the situation. "Please, relax. We're just travelers Suvalin and Gilbert." Luz watched them in silence as the tension thickened in the air. "So you think we're lying?" asked Mia, crossing her arms. The men quickly shook their heads. "Not at all. We just want to see if it's true. If you really can prove to the world that humans are worth as much as or even more than the other races." Their words sounded sincere, and for a brief moment, Luz saw in them a spark of hope. Before they could continue, Suvalin's group was called by other travelers who wished them luck. Shortly after, rumors began spreading through the city. People said Luz and his companions hadn't defeated any monster at all, that everything had been a hoax. Outraged, they decided to prove otherwise, showing the world their true worth. When they entered the dungeon again, Luz chose to head straight to the 5th floor. There, he found his friends gathered. Mia approached him and shyly handed him a small vial. "It's for your burns, as a thank you." Luz smiled, touched by the gesture, and took something from his pocket, a silver bracelet that shimmered softly. "Then take this in return. It grants wishes." Mia refused at first, but faced with Luz's insistence, she finally accepted, blushing with embarrassment. Back on the 5th floor, Nimuru commented suspiciously, "Wasn't that gift a bit too expensive?" Luz gave a calm smile. "It doesn't matter. She deserves it." The light-hearted atmosphere followed them until they reached the snow-covered plain. The place was silent, secluded, perfect for hiding. "It's good to be back here," Luz said, gazing at the horizon. After arranging everything, he sent the group to hunt and returned to the guild. His ladies had been waiting for him since early morning. "Everything went well," he said, satisfied. "I met good people out there." When he asked about the next step, the response came that preparations were almost complete. "Do whatever is necessary," he ordered. "May, keep managing the abyss. Ayuki, continue exploring the virgin forest. Nazuna," he paused, smiling with slight irony, "you know you're not good with complex tasks. Take care of the facilities until I return." Nazuna nodded, a little embarrassed. Luz then turned around, his gaze determined. "Now it's time to visit Sasha. I can't wait to see the look of despair on her face." If the legend were true, many believed that Luz could be a hero from a fairy tale or even the reincarnation of an ancient myth. However, the man who traveled with the group didn't let himself be carried away by idealizations. He only hoped that all of this would help end the discrimination against humans, who had long been viewed as inferior beings. After reflecting on that, he stepped aside for a moment to relieve himself. When he returned, he froze at the sight before him. The same elf who had fought Luz earlier was there once again. With his heart pounding, the man asked what he had done to his companions. The answer came in silence, as his eyes met the lifeless bodies of everyone lying on the ground. Despair overwhelmed him, but even knowing he had no chance against that enemy, he chose to act. "I have to warn the guild. They must pay for this," he thought, resolute. In a swift motion, he released a smoke screen and dashed through the forest, trying to escape into the darkness. For a moment, it seemed he had succeeded. But then something struck him from behind, throwing him violently to the ground. Before he could react, a precise blow made him lose consciousness. The dark elf approached, gazing down at the unconscious body. "Try to be more careful next time," he scolded another elf with disdain. The partner merely nodded, ashamed, promising to improve. Even so, the dark elf gave a cold smile. "In any case, this trash will still serve me well for my experiments." And thus, another episode came to an end. The scene shifts to the moment when the protagonist asks for a promotion, but the woman advises him to wait a bit longer. She explains that rising in rank is not as simple as people imagine. They had already made an exception before by promoting the girl directly from F to D. The lady tries to remind them that there is a procedure to be followed, but the young woman completely ignores it, believing the rules do not apply to her master, Luz. She comments, with a faint smile, that he deserved the S rank for super sadomasochist. The woman understands that Luz is powerful, but says she cannot grant such a promotion, since he recently registered with the guild, and that would break the laws. To advance, they must complete a higher-level mission. Shortly after, Luz finds a poster about an adventurer killer. Everyone knows that mission would be enough to raise their rank, although there is little information about the target. The man asks if there is a map that could help with the search, but Luz thinks that for that, he would need luck, since the cards appear randomly. The restless girl suggests bringing reinforcements from the abyss to locate the criminal faster. Suddenly, an intruder appears through a portal and drops an unconscious girl as a warning. Placing her on a bed, Luz uses his healing magic, wishing to understand what happened. When he touches her, the young woman's memories reveal fragments of the event. The story shifts to Mia's group, who who were hunting when they encountered other adventurers. They talk about a hunter who pursues and kills adventurers. Someone so strong he controls multiple elements. Faced with that, they decide to leave as soon as possible. However, when they least expect it, an elf appears behind them, asking if they need help. Pretending innocence, the man acts as a confused traveler and comments on the murders, saying he should probably leave the dungeon before it is too late. Hearing this, the group understands why they have found fewer adventurers than usual. They thank him for the warning, but the elf, with a cold look, tells them to be more discreet next time. In his thoughts, he finds it amusing that they reacted so quickly and concludes that all humans are fools. Then he decides to reveal his face, declaring that those would be the last insects to be crushed that night. Elio moves forward to protect his sister, ordering her to run, but he is brutally killed. The companions fall wounded, leaving only Mia, who hears her friends' pleas to escape. Desperate, she charges at the elf, but is stopped before she can strike. The dark elf asks that the victims not be killed, as he needs them for his experiments. The other elf ignores him, saying he likes to eliminate every insect in his way. He approaches Mia, saying she should not fear, for lying with an elf is an honor, and she should be begging for it. Mia panics, but hears her brother's voice telling her to run. The dark elf senses the boy's strength and orders Mia to flee while she can. The boy advances, even wounded, recalling Daurado's words, that even standing, one must fight, with sword or shield, and be creative in battle. The enemy calls him pathetic, but the young man throws his sword and hits him in the face. Enraged, the elf uses a powerful strike, asking why he dared touch him that way. Approaching, he demands that the boy bring Mia, or all will be lost. The narrative returns to Mia, who runs non-stop until the elf appears before her, asking her not to flee anymore. He says he will teach her how to act before a true hero of legends. Mia decides to fight, launching an ice attack, but he blocks it easily. Trying to escape, she is stopped again. The elf descends from the air, saying he is tired of chasing her and asks that she accept being captured. Mia thinks he is no hero at all. Heroes are kind and strong, like Luz. She remembers he was only someone who intimidated the weak, and that everyone called him a failure for not being able to evolve. She stares at him and thinks he is a nobody. The elf, furious, orders her to be silent, but Mia knows she cannot die there. Then she activates the bracelet Luz gave her, vanishing in a flash. Seeing the girl's memories, Luz understands everything and decides to go after her for revenge. The dark elf asks if his ally also killed the girl. Nervous, the other answers that she teleported. The dark elf, irritated, asks how a knight could let a girl escape and hears that she used teleportation magic. Disbelieving, he says humans do not possess that kind of power, but Kaido insists it is true. The dark elf panics, realizing they are in danger. If the guild is alerted, the Elven Kingdom will be notified, and they will discover that the boy stole Grandius's weapon. The order will return, along with the boy's captain, whose level is estimated at 3,000, with knights above 2,000. Kaido tries to calm him, saying there is still hope, as his research is nearly complete, and if it succeeds, he can surpass his limits. Then he decides to leave to continue his experiments. But it is already too late. Luz appears before them. Kaido recognizes him as the boy from the other day and tenses up. The elf is astonished, even being at level 1500, and realizes that Elio is still alive. Shocked, they cannot understand how the boy survived. Luz asks the reason for such cruelty, remembering that those adventurers were pure and brave people who helped each other and fought for Mia, even being discriminated against. They stayed united and could have become friends. Then Luz decides he will not let them go unpunished. He says he will not hand Kaido over to the guild, which the elf misunderstands, believing he is a legendary hero and that he can now eliminate them. Luz corrects him, saying that the hunter will be his prey and that he will eliminate him with his own hands. Kaido, enraged, vows to devour the boy's flesh and attacks, but his blows have no effect. Luz blocks everything effortlessly. Both are shocked by his strength. Tired, Luz lands a direct hit on Kaido's stomach, warning him to try harder, or he might end up dying by accident. Kaido screams for him to stop, unable to accept that a human would humiliate him like that. The elf charges at Luz with full force, unleashing blows that mix several elements, but the boy manages to block each of them with ease, as if the attacks were nothing more than simple gusts of wind. The dark elf freezes in shock, unable to comprehend how someone so young could stop such powerful strikes. Luz keeps a steady gaze and, in an instant, summons several ice swords around him. When the enemy advances again, he intercepts every blow with impressive precision, without showing any effort at all. The elf, consumed by rage, shouts that the sword does not belong to him, but to a master. Luz, with a serious expression, asks who this master he keeps mentioning is. The boy only replies that the blood of that man runs through his veins, which makes Luz's expression harden immediately. He feels a mixture of surprise and irritation rising within him. The air between them seems to grow heavier, and the tension reaches its limit. Thus, the episode ends, leaving doubt in the air about what will come next. Luz only thinks that the answer will arrive soon.